Believe it or not, a lot of people are actually leaving Germany, and leaving Germany has more steps than arriving. It sounds a bit far-fetched, and almost everyone discovers this when it's too late, especially after they've left and 2 months, 3 months down the line, they receive an invoice for a contract they probably did not close properly. I'm Ada. I work in HR here in Germany, and that means I've seen some of my colleagues leave Germany for other countries. They've also come to me in week 3, week 6, or even the day before their flight with different questions. And today we're going to talk about the 9 steps in the order they have to happen. The Abmeldung, what dates to pick, and why everything else depends on that date. The GEZ trap that follows you across border. The Sonderkündigungsrecht, the 1-month notice period that allows you exit your gym, electricity, or internet contract 1 month earlier. The pension contribution you might be eligible to get back after 24 months. And the exit tax that catches a small but expensive group. As always, the checklist is listed below, every deadline, every document, and in their order of operation. Let's get into the video. Step 1 would be to pick your Abmeldung date. That is essentially the date that you decide you're no longer going to be living in Germany. So your I no longer live in Germany date. And this date becomes the trigger for everything else. Your health insurance ends from this date. Your electricity and phone bills end on this date. It is also the date the Finanzamt closes your tax year. And your pension refund 24 months clock starts on that date. However, there are a few things to know. The German law gives you a window. The earliest you can submit your Abmeldung is 7 days to the day you're supposed to leave the country, or 14 days after you've left. So make sure you have this in mind when you're submitting your Abmeldung. And secondly, almost everyone picks the wrong date. They usually pick the date they fly out of Germany, but you should actually pick the day you hand over your keys back to the landlord, because that's essentially the date the insurance and the landlord will recognize. And so if both dates are different, you should pick the later one, the day you no longer have access to your German address. And thirdly, the day you pick is binding for every downstream office. So if you choose a date, write it down and use it to fill every form you need to fill regarding your exit from Germany. Step 2 would be the Abmeldung itself. There are different ways you can actually submit your Abmeldung depending on the city you live in. The first one would be in person. You can book an appointment at the Bürgeramt and go there in person to submit your Abmeldung. Secondly, you can submit by post. This happens in almost all German cities. You have to download and fill the Abmeldung formular, that is the Abmeldung form. You sign it, attach your passport and all necessary documents and send it to them by post. Or you can do online, especially if your ID card or residence permit is activated online, then you can submit the form online. What you would need would be your passport or your ID, the Abmeldung form, and your registration history in this address. Not all Bürgeramts ask for this, but some might. And by the time you submit your Abmeldung, what you should receive is your Abmeldebescheinigung. This is one very important document that you would need for the rest of this process. So you have to scan it, save it in your phone, in your contacts, save it anywhere you can easily reach it, because a couple of the other offices would ask you for the exact date and the exact form. So it's easy for you to reach. And if you lose this form, the bureaucratic process for replacement is long and tedious. You just don't want to deal with that. Step 3 is the Rundfunkbeitrag. That's the GEZ, also what we call the radio bill. Some people automatically assume that the Abmeldung automatically cancels the radio bill. It doesn't. You have to proactively cancel your radio bill yourself. If you don't do this, the bill continues to accumulate and it actually follows you internationally. Or maybe one day you might decide to come back to Germany and you find out that you cannot open a bank account simply because you have a debt from the radio bill that you weren't even aware of. So please, proactively cancel your radio bill yourself. And to cancel your radio bill, you have to go to the Rundfunkbeitrag.de website. Please also have your Betragsnummer handy. This number, you can find it in any of the letters that they send to you. You always have it there. On their website, opt for cancelling of your contract. Choose your reason as permanently moving out of Germany, and you can cancel your contracts from there. You also need to upload a copy of your Abmeldebescheinigung as proof that you're leaving Germany. And it's advisable that you do this within 7 days of receiving your Abmeldebescheinigung. Make it one of the first things you do after step 2. Step 4 is your health insurance. If you have a statutory health insurance, so TK, AOK, DAK, BAMA, and the rest, your health insurance ends the day your German residency ends. However, you still need to contact your Krankenkasse and inform them of your plan to exit Germany. You would also have to send them your Abmeldungsbescheinigung and fill out a couple of forms depending on how your individual Krankenkasse works. But the important thing though is that you need to receive a confirmation in writing of the cancellation of your health insurance. And there are two things people get wrong when you're cancelling your Krankenkasse. The first one is the date. The cancellation date should be your Abmeldung date, not the date you're filling out the form. So even if you abmelded last week and you're filling out the form today, your cancellation date should be the date on the Abmeldung. Secondly, usually when people cancel their Krankenkasse, there's usually a gap from the cancellation dates to the dates they're supposed to leave the country or even enter a new country. And most times people just leave that blank. It is advisable that you get a travel insurance that covers this gap in between. That way, if maybe you have any medical emergencies, you don't have to pay out of your pocket. Because if you find yourself in an emergency and you have to pay out of your pocket, that is how many months of whatever money you've saved gone. So it's advisable that you get at least a minimum of 30 days travel insurance or up to 90 days if the health insurance in the new country you're going to takes a while to set up. Just have those dates covered. If you're on a private health insurance, the clause to opt out of your insurance can be a bit different. However, if you're leaving the country, then they don't have a choice but to cancel your insurance. So what you can do in this case is inform your private health insurance provider, always attach your Abmeldungsbescheinigung, and keep in mind that the notice period could be up to 3 months. So you can also do this much earlier. Step 5, the contracts that lock you in for 2 years and the laws that let you go. So we're talking about mobile contracts, electricity contracts, gym contracts, and so on. This law is called the Sonderkündigungsrecht. So even if you have a contract that is 24 months locked in, you can activate your Sonderkündigungsrecht by attaching your Abmeldungsbescheinigung when you reach out to any of these providers to inform them that you're leaving Germany. By law, because you're leaving Germany, this Sonderkündigungsrecht automatically kicks in. However, for them to take you seriously, you always have to attach your Abmeldungsbescheinigung. So in this case, you have to write a formal Kündigungsletter citing the Sonderkündigungsrecht and attach a copy of your Abmeldungsbescheinigung. In most cases, you'll have to send this by post, and it's important for you to send this with Einschreiben. That way, you have proof of when they've received the letter. The cancellation kicks in 1 month after the providers have received the letter and not on your move date. So it might be helpful that you send these letters on the week you do your Abmeldungsbescheinigung as early as possible. For your gym contract, it's a bit tricky because gyms are not protected by paragraph 60 of the TKG. So some of them might not accept your cancellation, even if you apply the Sonderkündigung. Most of them do because, it's the right thing to do, but some of them might not. So what you might do in this situation is, if maybe you use a gym that has branches internationally, you can still go to any of their branches if they are in the new location where you're going to. Otherwise, you might have to bear the 3 months notice payment and just let it go. But please still send the Sonderkündigungsrecht with your Abmeldung certificate just to be sure that they accept it. And in case if they don't accept, then you might just have to still pay. Step 6 is Finanzamt. Of course, we're talking about taxes. If you ever filed a tax return in Germany, then you most certainly have something called the Steuer-Identifikationsnummer. That is your tax ID. It does not expire because you're leaving Germany. It does not also go out of date because you're leaving. Please do not lose your tax ID. You would need it when you want to file for a pension refund. If you decide to come back to Germany, you will still need the same tax ID. And if you want to file for a final tax refund, the tax ID would be important. So please don't lose your tax ID. And here are the things you need to do at the Finanzamt. Number 1 is to file for a final Steuererklärung. Even if you haven't done this by yourself in the past, even if your HR is the one that does it for you, you most certainly would have to file for a final Steuererklärung. It could be partial because, if you're leaving before the year ends, then they would have to file a partial one for you. And most times it results in a refund and you don't want to leave money on the table. So please file for your final Steuererklärung. And you can file using ESTA. That's the official website for tax declarations. But there are also other providers like TaxFix that can help you file for your taxes. You can do this yourself, but if you're not very confident, you can also use a tax consultant or a Steuerberater to help you with your taxes. The deadline is usually the 31st of July of the following year. Or if you're using a Steuerberatung, it could be extended up to the end of February, so either the 28th or the 29th of February of the following year. Secondly, you have to notify your Finanzamt of your new forwarding address. That's the address where they will send your refund to. So if you don't give them a correct forwarding address, your refund might just stay unclaimed for years. And thirdly, you need to keep your final Steuerbescheid. This document that you receive from the Finanzamt in Germany to show that you have properly filed your taxes. Please keep it because depending on the country you're going to, you might be asked to submit your final Steuerbescheid to show that you have cleanly exited Germany. And for most expats, this step almost always guarantees that money is coming back to you, except in an exception, which we'll talk about in step 10, the bonus. If you've gotten to this point and this video has been informational so far, please give it a like. Step 7 would be your bank account. You're not legally required to close your bank account when you live in Germany. The decision to close or not to close is entirely dependent on you. If you're using a traditional bank, so banks like Sparkasse, Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, some of them automatically close your bank account if your address is no longer a German address or if the account has been dormant for years. But if you're using a more neo bank, so banks like Wise, N26 or Revolut, you can still use your bank internationally. That means with an international address. Having said this, it's advisable that you leave your bank account open for at least 18 to 24 months because that is where your pension refund and possibly your tax refund would be paid back into, because these things tend to be processed faster if the bank address is a German bank. But if you put an international bank, it might take a bit longer and, different bank charges might still apply. Step 8 is for car owners. If you own a car or you have a registered vehicle in Germany, you have to register your vehicle in your vehicle registration office. The Abmeldung does not automatically deregister you. Selling your car does not automatically deregister you. Driving out of the German borders does not automatically deregister you. I'm sure you get the gist by now. The point is you have to actively go deregister your vehicle yourself. All you might need includes the Zulassungsbescheinigung. You would also need the license plates and your ID card. If you have an appointment, it could take roughly 30 to 45 minutes for this to be done. But if you don't have an appointment, of course, it will take you longer. And the moment your Zulassungsstelle stamps your deregistration form, your Versicherung, so your car insurance automatically deregisters. You don't have to call the car insurance company to deregister because the car registry automatically informs them. However, it's always better to be on the safe side. I would always advise you do the extra call so that you don't have to pay additional premiums simply because someone forgot to do something or the system did not work that day. If you're selling your car, it's advisable that you deregister with the new owner present and even have them re-register when you're there. Otherwise, you'll still be liable. Step 9 is the one most viewers are here for, the pension contributions refund. If you've been paying your taxes here in Germany, the Rentenversicherung, and you're living Germany permanently, you are entitled to get those contributions back. However, there are 3 eligibility rules. If you're leaving Germany to any country within the EU, the EEA region, UK or Switzerland, then unfortunately you're not eligible to receive your pension refunds back. This is because the EU countries communicate within themselves, and since you're still within the EU atmosphere, the EU coordinates preserve your pension rights. But if you're leaving the EU region, say you're going to the Philippines, to Nigeria, to Ghana, to India and the likes, then you're eligible to request for your refund. Secondly, your last contribution must have been paid 24 months before, and this is a very hard rule. The 24-month clock starts the day after your last payslip in Germany. And thirdly, you must no longer have the option to make a voluntary contribution in Germany. This usually is the case if you're no longer receiving payments in Germany. And you might be wondering, what do you get back? You only get back half of your contribution. So essentially, the part that gets deducted from your gross income, that is what you would get back. The other half that is paid by your employer still remains in the German system. How can you apply? The application form is V0901. I'll put the name on the screen, and you can find the form available on deutscheversicherung.de. So you attach this form V0901, a certified copy of your Abmeldebescheinigung, an A1313, A1312 form, depending on which country your bank account sits in, and a certificate of a life and residence, essentially a Lebensbescheinigung, issued by a German embassy or a consulate in your destination country. The processing time takes about 1 to 6 months, so you have to be patient. The single biggest reason most people don't apply for this is that they wait too long, they lose the Abmeldebescheinigung, and then they forget to apply. You should set a calendar reminder for exactly 24 months from the day you received your Abmeldebescheinigung and a day after you received your Abmeldebescheinigung, so that you can be eligible to apply for your pension refunds. And here is a quick bonus for a small group. If you own 1% or more of a corporation, German or foreign, and you've been tax resident in Germany for 7 of the last 12 years, then some kind of special tax known as the Wegzugsbesteuerung, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, it may apply to you when you decide to leave Germany. It taxes the unrealized capital gains on your shareholdings as if you have sold, even though you haven't. This catches founders, early employees with significant equity, family business heirs, and a small but expensive group of professionals. This might be you, and you would know if you're close to the 1% mark. So please do not figure this out by yourself. Please speak to a Steuerberater that specializes in international tax laws 6 months before your intended departure from Germany. Of course, there are other deferral options if you're in the EU or EEA regions, but it's always better to confirm before you leave, because if you leave, it's difficult from there. Anyway, let's do a quick recap on the important steps. First off, you pick your Abmeldung date. Use the same date for every other document downstream. Secondly, apply for the Abmeldung at your Bürgeramt and work out with your Abmeldebescheinigung. Thirdly, you have to cancel your radio bill, the Rundfunkbeitrag, and you have to do this on their website. Then you have to cancel your statutory health insurance and also get a travel health insurance for the gap in between. Then send a special termination letter to your internet, your electricity providers, and possibly your gym. Number 6 would be to file your final Steuererklärung. That's your tax declaration. Keep the Steuer-ID. Inform your Finanzamt of your new forwarding address. 7 would be to decide on your bank account and at least keep one open for 24 months. Then you cancel your car insurance if you have one. Number 9 would be 24 months and 1 day after your Abmeldung. Please apply for your pension refund. The other matters, the Abmeldebescheinigung connects all these steps together, so please don't lose your copy. If you want all of this in a printable page, then check the Leaving Germany checklist in the description box. If you're leaving Germany, then the moving apartment video on this channel might be useful for your last move before your departure. Please check it out, and I will see you in my next video. Ciao!